I wanted to take a moment of your time if you are someone who was following along with Alex Belfield before he was sent to prison for 2.5 years for the crime of online stalking, particularly of people from the BBC, Jeremy Vine and others. Regardless, it's now only 5 days until Alex Belfield will be 6 months to go before release. So I wanted to come on here to give you a little bit of notice in case you are someone who wants to send an email or to write to him to kind of go, ha, 6 months to go. And I know from an outside point of view, I'm really cautious when I speak to Alex on the phone, when I email. I'm trying to do all sorts of things. I'm trying to have stuff to say, but that doesn't make my life sound too interesting. I'm trying to be super positive and upbeat and reassuring and say the right things. I'm trying, or I kick myself if I say something like, oh yeah, I've just been doing this, like as if, oh, that's fine, I can do that, but you can't, so ha ha ha. It's just a tricky one. But if you are someone who would like to write by email or to send a little note or something, just to make a bit of a thing about 6 months to go, I thought it might be really nice, and I can definitely help with some information for you for that. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to just say a few things about this 2.5 years. And bear in mind, I have no right to comment at all in many regards because I'm not the one that's locked up. And I'm sure Alex will have plenty to say when he gets out, and plenty to talk about, and plenty that he's written about, and all sorts of things. I've been free on the outside, so what do I know? And I'm always really conscious of that whenever I'm talking about any of my friends who have been put in prison for what they think or saying what they feel or their beliefs, or being so cross that they tweeted accidentally and then found themselves put in jail for 2 years for a Facebook post. I mean, the craziness abounds. I wanted to say something about those guys as well, and particularly Peter Lynch. And then I suppose just finally, kind of an uplift, because this is actually really good news regardless of where you sit in this whole mess. So first up, the detail. So Alex will have 6 months to go on the 15th of December. So 15th of December, that means 6 months to go. And then Alex gets to walk out the door of the prison that he's in. He is currently in Fosse Way, Fosse, Fosse Way. And you can find it really easily if you just type up Fosse Way prison. The address will come up. But the important thing that you might want, and I wrote this down on a Ask Katie card. So Alex Belfield, you'll want his prison number. So A4747EW, but I've written it here. A4747EW. So that's what you'll need. You need his name, Alex Belfield. You need his prison number, A4747EW. And then for your own reference, you'll need to know the prison he's in, Fosse Way. And if you want to write a letter, it's super easy because you can find the address everywhere. LE18 4WS is the postcode. Or a great way to do it is to go to email a prisoner. And if you go on there and you could just send an email, you just click, you can set up to Alex Belfield, put in his prisoner number, put in the prison, you can write an email. But please, there's a box that you can tick that allow the prisoner to respond. If you can remember to tick that box, he can write back to you. And that's always a glorious thing. So that's your ways of getting in touch if you want to. The thing that I would like to say, I suppose, over the last 2.5 years of speaking to Alex, I guess weekly, twice a week often, is I think he's done an amazing job of staying sane. And it's something, I only did, and bear in mind, this is not the same, it is unrelated. I get that I don't have the right to a view on this because I've not been inside. But even when I was put into quarantine prison in Australia, I was taken up there by the military, put inside, not given a key, wasn't allowed out the door, wasn't allowed to phone, wasn't allowed to speak to anyone, wasn't allowed to get my own food, wasn't allowed to shop, I wasn't allowed to do anything. I lasted 3 days. Now, I appreciate the prison sentence was self-imposed because I said I would do a TV show for them, And I went over there during the time of COVID. That's why I was locked up. Not that that makes any rational sense to anyone. But I lasted 3 days. And then by day 3, I was online telling Australia to rise up against the tyrants that were running the country and to take to the streets and protest, and exposing what exactly had happened with me being brought into a country that was locked down to do with a shitty TV show. And then, of course, all hell broke loose and I was accused of sexually assaulting the military on the 24th floor of a prison quarantine accommodation, and I was deported and banned from Australia for 4 years. That's not the point. Alex has stayed sane, and I honestly don't know how. And he can still speak coherently. He still has stuff to say. He still has interest in things that have gone on, or a funny story or whatever. He's still got stuff. And that is, you know, if you imagine sitting on your own in your house for a day, you run out of things to say, don't you? You need interaction, you need engagement, you need, oh, this happened, oh, I saw this guy, he did this, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened at the roundabout today, blah, 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 blah. The stuff of life, the minutiae, the tiny stuff. Well, Alex still has that somehow, despite being in prison. I genuinely believe he could make content if he was in a vacuum, in some black hole. You know, it's a skill, and I'm really, really admiring of it. The second thing is, and this is a much bigger one, is you cannot rationalise the irrational, and that's hard. Because if I kill someone, I go to prison for that. That makes sense. I mean, I may have done a good deed for the world. I may have taken revenge. I may be pleased with myself because I may have decided that was going to happen. I may have been given my terminal diagnosis. And believe me, I've got a terminal list. But at least if you do A and you get B, that makes sense, doesn't it? You kill someone, you choose to kill someone, you go to prison. Okay. But if you make some videos online poking fun at people, or even if you, I don't know the detail of the other stuff because frankly, it doesn't matter to me that much. I know Alex. But let's say you send too many emails to someone. I don't know. Does it make sense to be in prison for 5.5 years? And maybe you still say, yes, it does, Katie, because I wouldn't like that to happen to me. La, 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 blah, blah. He definitely did something wrong. Whatever. I don't care. But then there's some other stuff as well that makes it more, for someone like me, you can see it from a mile off. And even if you're not a supporter or not a fan, when he was looking at maybe appealing the sentence, because no one had ever been sentenced like that, no one had ever been sentenced for online stalking in that manner, no one had ever got 5.5 years. The moment he talked about an appeal, all of a sudden, news articles were released that said, if Alex Belfield's appeals, well, the Attorney General or the Solicitor General says he should be given a longer sentence. So Belfield was put off appealing because the media were complicit, I believe, with the judiciary in saying if he appeals, we'll give him a longer sentence. I mean, messaging like that doesn't happen by chance, I would argue. I would also argue he's been made a special case of because 2.5 years is what he was supposed to serve inside. He'll have served all of it. All of it. No one serves all of it, particularly not now when people are being released early if they were a human trafficker or they committed some sort of fraud or theft or whatever. They've been let out. Was Alex let out? Was he given 40% of the total time he was? No, he wasn't. Then the other thing, this is the most obvious way you can see that this is a total stitch up, in my opinion, is he should have gone to Cat D. So you'll know maybe the prisons are organised in categories A, B, C, D, and like Belmarsh is the tough ass one, category A prison. So category D, you're basically free. My understanding is you can go home every X amount of time. You're basically learning to be outside and inside. You're still supervised, but you're also coming back to prison, but you're also starting to work out how things will go on the outside. And also, of course, you've got hope. You can see your family members. Alex hasn't been allowed to Cat D. So all those things kind of reinforced my personal beliefs that it's been a stitch up all along. But when you cannot rationalise something, I can promise you it's much harder to deal with. Many, many things in my life, if I've done something wrong, bring it. But when you've done nothing wrong and you're still being eviscerated, And everyone seems to be nodding, governments are nodding along. Senior, the deputy leader of Australia nodding along. Oh yes, she definitely did that. And it didn't happen. It's really bonkers. So that whole rationalising the irrational, he hasn't been able to. He's definitely, in my opinion, been made a special case. And I guess finally, what purpose did it serve? Okay, a few of us got a bit of a breather from Alex Belfield, noncing around in his little velvet jacket. Got a breather from his jokes, having to see him for a bit. I mean, that was quite nice, to be honest. Well done. No, but what purpose has it served? Him being there. I mean, the only purpose I can see is that he's supposed to top himself, and he hasn't. And I've always said to Alex, the day you get out is the day you win. It's why I'm so happy for him, because I think regardless of who he is, what he was, anything, to be able to survive that is a real feat of endurance, I think. And I'm very admiring of it. So those were just my views. And I wanted to say one small thing, and not at all putting them necessarily together, but the gentleman, Peter Lynch, I believe his name, who committed suicide. He's one of the gentlemen that were present, I believe, after the Southport stabbings, where the Welsh Christian, who of course is Rwandan, was stabbed young girls. And the gentleman that was one of the gentlemen that was put inside in prison following that, when Keir Starmer needed to immediately crack down and worked with the judiciary, worked with the legal system that he knows so well to get favours for them so that they would sentence harshly, sentence immediately, and get all of these people thrown inside as a lesson to others to not riot, because the whole country could have gone up, still will go up. We're still sitting on a pressure cooker. One day this country does blow. That's just fact. But Peter Lynch got 2 and something years, I want to say, and forgive me on detail, I should have checked, for the crime of shouting at police officers, or shouting, or holding a sign and shouting. Regardless, he committed suicide in prison. And my heart says that he didn't commit suicide because of the sentence. My heart says he didn't commit suicide inside because he couldn't do the time. Because he had children, he has grandchildren, he has a family, he has people that love him, I'm sure. I suspect he committed suicide for precisely that thing we were just talking about. Not being able to rationalise the irrational. Knowing you live in a country prepared to sentence you for over 2 years for being somewhere and not hurting a fly. Against the backdrop of being in a country that is going against you and all the good things you know and all the great British people, that prioritises illegals, that protects the people that harm us, that never goes after the people who do wrong, who hurt people, who come here to hurt people or to come here to take. Peter Lynch was still working in a packaging plant, I understand, for his family. Just a guy trying to make everyone okay. When you cannot rationalise to that point, when you feel like all hope for your country is lost, that's when you decide it's not worth going on. And that's the same message I get from a lot of elderly people who say, I'm glad my time is nearly up because I don't like the way my country has gone. So I think that, I have a respect for Peter Lynch as well, because I don't think it was about the sentence. I think it was about, or him not being able to endure that. I think it was when you don't have hope for your country, what point is there in living? So those are things I wanted to say. I wanted to help you find Alex. Let me just grab his little thing again. If you want to email a prisoner, just go to email a prisoner and create a little account. A47, I can't do it if I stop, A4747EW, A4747EW. Yeah, I have to do it in one. A4747EW, yeah. And so the prison is Fosse Way. It's 1 Tigers Road. It's in Wigston, LE18 4WS. You can look that bit up. And maybe you just want to let Alex know that you realise It's 6 months to go, and that, you know, we'll be very happy to see him out on the other side, whatever he chooses to do next. I think he's done a really brave thing. What's going on with my throat and my voice? I think he's done a brilliant thing, being the one that ultimately wins simply by prevailing. We endure to prevail, and in the end, we win. Okay, thank you very much for your time.